yes, it's been really good and to be able to have this focus at SIF this year. And our work goes back to 1993 when the APC Women's Program was first launched. And it's gone through different phases, like many of APC's other work. You know, initially it was really just about building skill and training women in NGOs, in development work, in rights work, to use the tools. It then shifted more to getting women involved in policy and decision making, particularly around the World Summit, but not just at a global level, at a national level, as more and more developing countries started thinking about ICTs and ICT for development, to get women as decision makers in those processes. It's shifted. Now we focus very much on working with the women's movement. And I think that is actually, maybe I want to dwell on that, because I think that, well, firstly, access and gender equalities and inequalities in access are not just related to access. I think that's the first recognition. There are structural inequalities due to class and income levels and status, social status, which affects how women are able to use and participate on the internet. And then there's also hate speech, there's misogyny, all of those issues that we've talked about yesterday in particular. And you can't tackle those just through focusing on access. And I think there's actually a tendency to focus very much on getting women mobile phones in women's hands. And I think that it is good, it is powerful, it can have a disruptive effect, but it's not enough, not if there are inequalities and discrimination at a structural level. So I think that needs to be addressed. And I think, I mean, I'm also interested to hear what you're saying about you know, your work in trying to build entrepreneurship. But then I think the other thing is that feminist practice needs to take the internet seriously at two levels. Firstly, it is a domain where you have to struggle, you have to make your case. And there's a tendency for many women's organizations not to get involved in internet policy and regulation. In the IGF, for example, you have women techies there, and you have women who are in human rights organizations. You don't have many people who are working on women's rights and gender justice as their primary activity. And then secondly, I think that feminists also need to not just assume that there's been a shift. I mean, to be a little bit critical, actually, it's good that we're counting the number of women in the room, but how important is that really? You know, and I think there's often a tendency to approach gender equality as a good thing, to celebrate when you've got women panelists and women participants. But you're actually not engaging the struggle for gender justice. And I think what we see on the internet is that in developed countries like the United States, there are thousands of young men and young women who use the hashtag feminazi whenever they see anything about feminism. And I think we need to recognize that we don't actually, we often behave as if we hold the moral high ground as feminists, and we stop engaging, we stop making our arguments. We assume that that was done in the 60s and 70s, and now we just need to consolidate and get more powerful women. I think I have a 17-year-old son who's grown up with powerful women, and when I talk to him about misogyny, he says, "What is that?" And he's actually quite skeptical, and I think that's the other challenge for us as feminists, particularly in the internet space, is to recognize that we have to have the arguments. We still have to have the debates. We can't just dismiss the fact that there are many people out there who don't understand or who don't care or who are actively opposed to notions of feminism and gender equality.
Thank you. You need to show your son, just show him the hashtag you mentioned, feminazis. That is the best definition there is of misogyny. Okay.